Hello everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. It's only been about 4 days, I guess, since my last video, but I figured while I had a chance and I was home alone that I might try to put one out. So anyway, I just wanted to start with apologizing for my last video and the fact that I never considered that I'd have to write backwards on the whiteboard. So I actually learned how to write backwards today because I do have something that I wanted to show you before I proceed with this video. So here it is. This is actually, I think I mentioned last time that I was going to try to do a 6-part series on our current medical system. So this is the 6 parts that I picked. And you'll see at the very bottom, this is basically, we'll summarize the rest of that kind of, because this is the whole reason for me talking of these subjects. So if you'll see what they are, some of them I can mention and some of them I can't. This is going to be our topic today, which is abortion. You'll see that. The next, I'm not going to say this word. I'm just not. This, childbirth. Pharmakia. I'm going to choose not to say this word. And like I said, to tie it in, the last will be of Rockefeller medicine. So you see the topic today, and it's not a very fun one for me. I think out of all of the research that I've done so far, that was the most difficult. I think for any woman that has a nurturing side and especially has kids and feels motherly, I think that it will be hard for any of you. So I'm going to try to provide you with evidence that's not going to be too graphic. It's certainly not going to be anything visual that I'm going to put up, but I do plan on putting like a procedure down, or, you know, link it to the description box after. You know, all the links will be there. But I do think that you need to know the procedure, and you need to know what it is. Because if you don't know the truth, then you could easily fall for, you know, believing that's just a plain and simple medical procedure. And I do believe that that's what a lot of people think it is, especially in the first few weeks. So that's what I'm going to try to expose in this video, is the truth of it, and from a few different angles. So I'm going to start with saying that it was the most, you know, difficult research I've ever done so far. There was days when I started researching it and realizing the truth of what it truly was and how I was so blinded. I mean, I never thought of it. It was nothing that ever came into my life that I considered. It was nothing that I really, you know, thought too much about. You know, it was a topic that was there. But, you know, as a Christian, I mean, especially when I was close to God, I mean, I always thought, no, like, there's no way I'd, you know, ever do that. But I never really realized what it really was. I never realized the depth of it. And I think that the medical system and Planned Parenthood and people that profit or get whatever they get out of this, they don't want you to know the truth. They don't. And it is one of the most evil parts of those 6 things I have written on the board, or those 5 things I have written on the board. By far, one of the most evil. And once you learn the truth, I'm hoping you'll understand why. So, when I did my research, I came across this doctor, and his story was, now it's been a while since I watched his video. This is probably 2 years ago now. And I don't know, I mentioned before that I had written a book. I put a chapter about abortion in my book. So I am going to reference that from time to time. So the doctor that I did my research from, he had a story. And like I said, he's going to be the link that I put up to try to make you understand what it truly is. Throughout the different weeks. So I do believe his story was that he was a gynecologist for years. And although I don't think, he didn't work at Planned Parenthood, he just had his own practice. He was an obstetrician, so he just had a practice. And of course, it's legal, so up to a certain, I do believe up to a certain gestation, he would do them in his office. And I don't know, I guess he probably did other ones too. I don't know. All I know is that in his practice, he happened to have to do abortions. And I guess it didn't seem to bother him. But he has a story that he and his wife had a hard time having kids, and that they adopted their first child. And then, now, don't quote me because I don't know this story. I got to refresh the story, but this is basically the way it went. That him and his wife adopted a child. Then a few years later, they got pregnant themselves without any help. So they had 2 kids. Well, I guess it wasn't too long after the second child was born. They lost the first, I think the child was killed. The first child that they had adopted, I do believe it was that child, was killed in some kind of car accident, got hit by a car or something like that. And his story is that he was fine. Like, once he decided, he took his appropriate time off, whatever the appropriate amount of time is for taking that off work. He went back, and when he did, he, of course, had to do an abortion. And that he did it. He did. He made himself do it. But I do believe he said that was the last time that he ever did one. And he was done with it. He was completely done. He saw the truth. You know, he did it for years. And sorry, I might even get emotional on this video because I feel like I'm going to cry already just thinking about it. But for years, you know, he did that. And all of a sudden it took the loss of his child, you know, his child being ripped away from him, to realize how precious the lives of those children, and I'm going to call them children. A lot of people may disagree with me on that. You know, that he never realized what he was doing to those children, right? So I'm going to post his video. That's going to be one of my first links I'll put up, is his, and I'm not going to get into it because in my book I have it written down, but I think it's better to listen to him, because what I did is I took everything that he said in his videos and I put it up. I put up exactly what the procedure is, because of course it's different weeks, for months, like as we get closer up to birth, it's a totally different procedure, right? So what I did in my book is I wrote the procedure down, and then I backed it with what would be happening at those weeks, from, you know, because baby sucks his thumb early on, baby does a lot of things early on. So what I would do is I'd put the nasty procedure and exactly what is done medically. Then I would put underneath exactly what they were, what a baby or an embryo, what a fetus, I guess is what we'll call it, say, what a fetus would be, like, developmentally would be doing at that stage. So that's how I started that chapter in my book. So then I found a lot of, after the doctor, I found, and I don't know how the succession went, but I want to talk to you now about Margaret Sanger, because I know anybody that's ever heard, you know, anything about Hillary Clinton has heard that word or that name, Planned Parenthood, right? Because she talks a lot about it, or she did during her campaign. She never shut up about it. It was so good for women and blah, blah, blah. So Margaret Sanger was actually the founder of Planned Parenthood. And so this is where I'm going to probably get out my book and try to reference a little bit, because I have it all right in front of me in my book. So I might as well not, you know, I might as well look at it. So Margaret Sanger, she started out with birth control. I know that she started out, you know, being an advocate of birth control, and she kind of started there. And she was into something that is called eugenics. And I'm going to give you the definition of eugenics. Eugenics is as the science of improving a human population by controlled breeding to increase the occurrence of desirable heritable characteristics much like the Nazis practice. And there are many quotes from Margaret Sanger that support this, and I'm going to give you a couple. So there's a couple written here. One is we don't want the word to get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. Next quote, the most merciful thing that the large family does to one of its infant members is to kill it. And thirdly, I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance to be a human being. And those are all quotes from Miss Margaret Sanger. So if you look at, as far as this eugenics goes, if you look at where the first Planned Parenthood, I'm not exactly sure, but I know it was in a Black community. I know it was. So the geographical location of many of these Planned Parenthood clinics are in highly populated African American neighborhoods. And that's probably true too, because it is true, but I'm just saying, when I was doing, I know that it's true, because when I was doing my research on abortion, of course, that was, there was a African American lady having an abortion, and I could have watched it. That came right up on my feed. And I thought, no way, I wasn't going to watch that. I was not going to watch that. I'm just saying, it just kind of proves it, right? So the other thing that I wanted to say is that Bill Gates' father actually was into eugenics, highly into eugenics. And I do believe he even maybe worked with Margaret Sanger, or definitely he had something big. I'm pretty sure, and don't quote me on that, but I think if you look at it, he did have something big to do with Planned Parenthood. I forget exactly what, but I do know for sure he was into eugenics. So anyway, maybe I shouldn't even say that name. Who knows? Maybe this will get taken down too. So after Margaret Sanger, there was something else that I needed to look up, because as we all know, everybody knows the court case Roe V Wade, right? So there's a couple interesting facts about Roe v. Wade, actually. Her name was Norma McCorvey. That was Roe, I guess. Yeah, I think Roe was her name, right? So Norma McCorvey. And what happened was, I do believe it was around 1970, and I think she had a couple kids and wanted an abortion with her third or something. I think something like that. So she wanted an abortion, and it ended up, I'm just going to make the long story short. So she ended up wanting an abortion, and she couldn't find a clinic to do it. And so it ended up, legally, she got mixed up in the whole court case. She wanted to, there is a big backstory to it. But basically, she wanted the abortion. She found the lawyer. They made the case out of it and set the precedent for it. And because with court cases, I mean, she was already pregnant when it started. Everybody knows how long it takes for anything in the courts, anything like that to happen. It was 3 years. I think they said it was 3 years before it actually went through it was legal to have an abortion. So in that time, she had the baby. She had a baby, and she gave it up for adoption. The other part to her story that seemed odd or different that you don't hear is that she also became a huge pro-life activist. And I do believe she did work after her trying to fight for an abortion. I do believe she might have worked in a few clinics, but eventually it was and I do believe that's probably where she came in contact with the pro-life movement. And she with the pro-lifers talked her finally got to her and realized, what it was. And she became a Christian. So Norma McCorvey, or Roe in Roe v. Wade, never had an abortion ever, and was a pro-life activist in her last few years. She's dead now. She died a few years ago. So I find that story kind of interesting too, because You know, they don't tell you that stuff. You can only hear one whole part, you know, one part to the story, always. The part that sounds the best for whatever agenda they want to fulfill. So, the last thing I have to say about the research that I did on abortion is a phenomenal movie, and it's about a phenomenal lady, actually, named Abby Johnson. And I don't know, probably a lot of you have not seen it. I don't know. It was out a few years ago. I ended up seeing it at a Catholic church because it was censored. It was censored. It didn't play in movie theaters across Canada. They didn't want it out. Because, you know, out of everything that I researched, I do believe that that was the biggest piece of truth that I ever could have witnessed, was that movie, because it's a true story. So Abby Johnson, and I'm just going to give you a quick overview of her story. It starts out, and I think I will read you first I'm going to read you the opening, about the opening of the movie, because I've got it written down here real quick, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about her. So, the movie Unplanned, that was censored across Canada, that I saw in the Catholic Church, back in like 2018, maybe. It wasn't that long ago. I have the book, actually. It opens with this touching scene. Abby is pulled into a room with a young girl on the table. The ultrasound machine is turned on, and Abby, catching the screen, sees a 13-week fetus kicking and moving in the womb. She then watches the screen as the suction machine is turned on and sees the fetus pull away, fighting the suction catheter. The fetus loses struggle for life. The screen goes blank. It is pulled into the catheter. Blood runs through the suction equipment. Then the machines are turned off. Abby quickly leaves the room. She goes into the nearest bathroom, and she realized that she had just witnessed the truth. So, the backstory on Abby was that she worked at Planned Parenthood for years. She worked there for years. Didn't bother her a bit. She even had 2 abortions of her own. So, what was different about that one? So in her other abortions is a movie, and I'm going to put all that, I can't give you a link to the movie, but I'm going to write the movie in and all that, so you'll see in the description box, because I just want to, you know, I really think that it's important that if you're interested in this and knowing the truth about it, that you watch that movie. So she was climbing up the ladder of Planned Parenthood. Like I said, she even had 2 of her own abortions. So the story was that one day, as she was moving up her ladder of Planned Parenthood, doing whatever she did. I think at one point she was I forget what they call it, but the one to sift through the parts even. And that didn't phase her either. Sift through all of the parts, because they have to make sure that they got all the parts out so mom doesn't get infection, right? So she even did that, and still didn't realize what it was. Didn't understand the truth at all. So one day, a different doc comes in, and he says to her, I do something different, and I'm going to do it here. And instead of them just blindly going in and doing what they do, this doctor used the ultrasound machine. And that was the difference right there. So when she saw that, when she actually saw the truth, that was not a blob of tissue, that it was nothing that wasn't formed, that it was a visible fetus, a visible head, beautiful fingers, beautiful toes. At 13 weeks, they have all of that. They have, I do believe they even have fingerprints. All that baby was formed. Now, it wasn't a blob at that moment. It wasn't a blob. It wasn't just a piece of tissue. It wasn't a 13-week-old, whatever they would call it, I guess, embryo, fetus, whatever they call them at 13 weeks. It wasn't. At that moment, the thousands she saw before that, her own, they were all just to her pieces of tissue. Sorry, I keep doing that with my camera. it wasn't so in that moment. So my point is to you about that is that if you don't know the truth, you're going to fall for anything. I mean, I'm spiritual. I believe in God. And I know for a fact those are sacrifices to Satan. They really are. This was all happening back years ago. They just found a way to make it all palatable now. We'll just call it, instead of people realizing, instead of people's, I guess, you know, back probably, I know Jamie told me, like, I never saw them and I never would want to, but he said back when he was in school, they used to show kids. They used to show them exactly what happened, graphics and all, video of it, of them ripping limb to limb. And in fact, I know that because my best friend, even my best friend, I think she was a Pentecostal. And in elementary school, she mortified me saying that, you know, they showed her in Sunday school these abortions. And she was telling me about it. And I literally was mortified. Like, I was like, why? And of course, I looked at it, why would they do that? Well, of course they do that. If you want someone to know the truth, you need to show it to them. And that makes all the difference, you know? It really does. Anybody that sees what it truly is, most people, now, there's always people that want to do evil. I'm talking about good-hearted people, Christians, or even people that, you know, moms and dads that love their kids. If they knew what it was, they wouldn't look at it as a medical procedure, because it's not. It is not a medical procedure. It is a sacrifice. It is. It really is. And like I've said before, whether you believe it or not, we are in a spiritual battle. And right now, we're heading into the biggest ever that will ever be spiritual battle, because we're in end times. And all of this stuff is coming to light. People are starting to get the thirst for knowledge, to realize they've been lied to. And this medical system, I can assure you, is one of the biggest lies. And it encompasses a lot of topics. So I don't know if this is going to mean anything to you. I don't know if I've got you really intrigued about knowing the truth so that, you know, you won't be deceived. So I hope I have. And there's really not much else I can say about it. I'm going to put up the links to everything. I'm going to find that doctor and all of his procedures. And I think the video series I will find of him will have him giving you that little story on his background. And then I'm going to also put up, well, I mean, if I can find something on Margaret Sanger, I will. But I think a lot of people can know basically who Margaret Sanger is, that she was, you know, but look into the eugenics program. If I can, you know, I've already given you some quotes, so I might not put up a whole lot about her, but I'm going to write, you know, leave the movie unplanned, right? Yeah. Up there, and probably her name, just so you guys can do your own research. So I'll probably just put the topics that I discussed, and so that you can do your own research. But please do yourself a favor, guys. If you really want to know what I'm talking about, watch Unplanned. It's a really good movie. It really is. And then, you know, knowing the truth, it means the world. Like I said, especially right now. So anyway, I will put up all those links or whatever in my description box. And I'm hoping to get another video out soon. And like I said, I can't say that word. And I'm not even going to try. This one. And if I switch them around a little bit, it'll be because I may try to get a different channel up and going before I try to talk too much about these two. Because like this is something that's very touchy too, even without that. So I may choose to do either this or this next, just because I'm going to try to get that another channel, just so I have all my content before I get too many videos up and lose everything, because I've already got a strike, and if I get 2 more, I'm gone. YouTube will just kick me off. So I'm going to try to avoid that happening. So anyway, have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.